Hi everybody, JJ here with ASUS, and today we're going to be talking about updating the firmware or the UEFI BIOS on your motherboard. This is extremely important as the firmware really defines a large number of aspects of operation of your motherboard, ranging from the overall interoperability and compatibility to performance, as well as stability, as well as ultimately the overclocking experience and many other aspects of operation for how your system ultimately runs. And in updating the firmware, you can really help to ensure that you get the best experience across all these different aspects. So we're going to go ahead and walk you through the ins and outs of how to effectively update the firmware on your motherboard, whether it's going to be on a B450 series motherboard, X570 series motherboard, or the latest TRX 40 series of motherboards. So let's go ahead and get into it. So before we get into the specific steps on actually how to update your UEFI, there are a couple of things that you want to keep in mind. If you've already gone ahead and put together your system and everything is working smoothly without any issues, I would actually probably recommend that you don't update to the newer UEFI unless you specifically want, let's say, a performance benefit, or there's a specific feature or function that you're aware of that exists only in that firmware release. Now, why would I say this? Well, this comes from the aspect that in some situations, and most commonly with heavily overclocked configurations or specialized storage configurations which feature RAID setups, you can sometimes have issues by migrating from one UEFI release to another UEFI release. It can cause issues potentially with that RAID volume not necessarily being bootable, or potentially causing instability with that overclock configuration. Now, you generally can go ahead and redial in your overclock settings to work under that new UEFI, as well as go ahead and of course recreate the RAID volume, but there could be issues with that, and so it is something to keep in mind. For the vast majority of users that are of course running stock experience or near stock experience, there's generally not going to be any issues or negatives from going from one version of UEFI to the newer version of the UEFI, especially because you're gaining many benefits by going to that newer version release, especially with AMD's latest generation releases where they've phased in quite a number of performance improvements. Now, what are you going to need in terms of updating the UEFI? Well, there's two options you have available to you. The first option is going to be the easiest. With the latest generation of ASUS B450, X570, as well as TRX 40 series motherboards, the updating process is extremely easy, and the reason being is that we've gone ahead and integrated the updating options built into the UEFI itself. If you navigate into the UEFI and head over to the Tools section, you have EasyFlash 3. EasyFlash 3 can directly connect to the ASUS support servers and download the corresponding UEFI update directly to the motherboard and complete the flash process. It's a very simple, easy, and effective way to be able to complete this. Now, the one thing you do want to keep in mind is that this currently only works through a wired connection. It does not work through wireless. So even if your motherboard features wireless built on board, you can only complete this updating process by utilizing an Ethernet LAN cable that's physically connected to your motherboard to, of course, your corresponding either, let's say, router or switch, providing you a network connection. Now, another option, is probably the most traditional and standard option that people use to update the UEFI, is to download the UEFI update directly from the website. This will either require that you download the update on your system that you have running, that you're going to apply the update to, or from a secondary system. It's a very easy process though. All you need to do is head over to support.asus.com. From there, type in the corresponding model name for the actual motherboard that you have, and then you want to head over to the download section. Once you've arrived there, you want to go ahead and select the latest UEFI release. Once you've gone ahead and selected the latest UEFI release, you want to download that corresponding file. Generally, I would recommend saving it to your desktop. From there, you will need to extract it using some form of decompression utility. Windows has its own built-in decompression utility, or you can of course use third-party utilities like WinZip, WinRAR, or 7-Zip, or any number of other type of options to ultimately decompress this file. Once you have that file decompressed, you want to go ahead and move that over to a flash drive. And once it's been moved over to a flash drive, you've completed half of the actual updating process. Now, in the next step, we're going to actually go through booting into the actual UEFI BIOS and then taking advantage of the integrated EasyFlash 3 wizard by then flashing directly from the flash drive the corresponding file that we've downloaded. Now that you've gone ahead and completed the download of the file, all you need to do is boot into the UEFI. So we go ahead and hit the delete key when we're powering on our system and it's going through the actual power on self-test or the post. This will allow us to go ahead and access the UEFI. We're then going to go ahead and go into the Tools section and access EasyFlash 3. From there, you want to go ahead and select your flash drive. And from there, go ahead and select the directory. Now, in most situations, I would generally recommend just having that file that we went ahead and extracted and placing it directly in the root of your flash drive. This makes it the easiest way to find the overall corresponding file. Once you've gone ahead and selected that file, you're going to want to press OK in terms of the file that you want to use to update your UEFI. Now, the actual motherboard's integrated utility will do essentially a parity check, verifying that the actual model number information is correct, meaning that you have the right file. In the event that you actually get a flag from the UEFI saying, hey, this isn't the correct file, you're going to want to make sure to go back to the website and confirm that you actually have downloaded the correct UEFI update for your motherboard. Now, it's important to keep in mind that depending on the version that you're coming from, you sometimes may see a delay in essentially acceptance of the motherboard recognizing that file. In most situations, it'll be pretty quick, but in some situations, it can take actually about 5 to 10 seconds to correctly recognize the file and then prompt you if you want to proceed with flashing the actual motherboard. Now, once you've been prompted, all you need to do is hit OK, and then you will see the actual flash process commence. Now, it's important to keep in mind that this flash process can take, a couple of minutes in terms of its totality. In some situations, you'll see the actual flash go through fairly quickly, and it may be finished in as little as about maybe 15 to about 20 seconds. In some other situations, you may see it actually run maybe a couple of minutes. In both situations, this is entirely normal, and under no circumstances do you ever want to shut down your system. Allow it to go ahead and complete all the way up to the 100%, and then from there, you'll be actually advised with a message that lets you know that the actual flash process is completed successfully. From there, you want to go ahead and press OK, and the system will reboot. Now, once it goes ahead and reboots, you want to make sure to not touch any corresponding keys. You don't want to do anything to your system. The reason being is that sometimes there is secondary firmware that is going to be flashed during that actual repost and that reboot process. And you'll generally be advised of this with an on-screen message letting you know that secondary, essentially firmware, is being updated. This is especially common on, let's say, higher-end ROG series motherboards where we have secondary, let's say, specialized controllers, which also have firmware that can be updated outside of the primary firmware for the motherboard itself. So overall around, you just want to keep in mind that you're looking at any on-screen messages that are going to be present to ensure that you're not cutting off the system and allowing it to go ahead and go through the entire update process. Now, once the update process is going to be completed, you'll generally be prompted with a default UEFI message, and all you need to do is go into the UEFI, then go ahead and load up your UEFI defaults, and then from there boot back up into your operating system. Now, if you of course have any specialized aspects of operation that you need to define inside the UEFI, then you want to go ahead and make those adjustments at that time, and then from there save them and then boot back up into the operating system. At that point, you've gone ahead and completed your UEFI update. Last but not least though, I'm going to show you how you can quickly go ahead and reference in the UEFI which version of the UEFI you're currently running so that you can make sure that that update completed effectively. So to verify the UEFI release that you have on your system, all you need to do is reboot the system, hit that delete key, and enter the UEFI again. Once you've gone ahead and done that, all you need to do is navigate over to the top of the screen, and there you'll be listed the actual UEFI version that you're running. As long as that corresponds to the version that you went ahead and downloaded from the support site, or that you saw noted if you utilize the integrated EasyFlash utility, then you're good to go, and you've gone ahead and successfully updated your UEFI.
Hey, what's up guys? This is Greg with ASUS ROG, and in this video, we're going to be doing a gaming system build, but not just any system. This is a Mini ITX Z390 system build, and it's all kind of built around our ROG Strix Z390i gaming motherboard. And of course, we also want to utilize the latest Intel CPU. This is a 9th generation Intel Core i7 9700K, so that'll be good for this system. Also, keeping that CPU nice and cool is the ROG RYUO all-in-one CPU cooler. This is the 240mm version, and it should fit perfectly in that case and keep that CPU nice and cool. Now, the next component we want to take a look at is probably one of the most important for a gaming system, is the graphics card. We're utilizing the GeForce RTX 2080 Turbo Edition by ASUS. Now, the Turbo Edition has a blower style fan, which we'll show you in a bit, but that's kind of perfect for small form factor builds with kind of limited airflow. Although there is pretty good airflow in this case, and we'll get to that in a bit. Powering the whole system is the Corsair RM850X power supply. 850 watts is probably more than enough than we need for this system, but that's kind of what you want to do when you're coming up with a system build and how much power you need. You want to kind of get a little higher than you need because you don't want it to be working at maximum power all the time. Now, our friends over at Cable Mod were nice enough to send over a whole set of sleeved cables for us. so it's going to look really cool. They even sent us over some sleeve SATA cables. So I don't know if this is a new product they make, but it's the first time I'm building with these, and it should be fun. Now, the last components that we want to take a look at here, we're using a Intel M.2 SSD. It's the 6 series, so that should be plenty of fast, 512 gigabyte. And then we're also using a Toshiba OCZ 1 terabyte drive SSD, kind of to store all of our games and everything. So that'll be cool. And then last, but certainly not least, is the G.Skill Trident Z RGB memory. And this has RGB lighting on the top that works with our AuraSync RGB lighting on the motherboard. So we can control the lighting on this directly through our AuraSync software. Really cool. It's a 16 gigabyte kit, 3200 megahertz. So that should be plenty enough for a gaming system in this day and age. Oh, and the case, of course. This is the NZXT H200i. Now the I means that it has a little module on the back that controls for the fan control and the RGB lighting. There's an RGB lighting strip built in there. And you can of course add additional ones if you'd like to. Now let's go ahead and get started. I think the only tool I'll need is my trusty screwdriver. The first thing we're going to do is tear down this case, take off all the side panels, and get it ready to receive all this hardware. Now this front panel is kind of difficult to get off, I think just because it's a brand new case. You kind of just have to give it a good yank and it'll come right off. It's held on with just these pressure clips right here. Now we're also going to remove the dust filter in the front. I actually don't think we're going to be able to use this because of how we're going to be setting up the fans and the liquid CPU cooler, so we'll just toss that. So now I think we're ready to go ahead and prep the motherboard and get that installed here. So the first thing we're going to do is install the CPU. I like to install it before I put the motherboard in the case, just because there's more room to work with. Now to make sure it's oriented correctly, there's a little triangle on the bottom left hand of the CPU. That matches up with this little dot on the motherboard itself. Let's go ahead and drop that in. This black cover just pops right off and we're ready to go. All right, so this motherboard has a built-in rear I/O shield, so that makes its installation really easy. Let's go ahead and pop it right in there. And the motherboard is just held in place by 4 screws, which of course come with the case. All right, so we've got our motherboard in here with the CPU. Next thing we're gonna do is go ahead and install the power supply. Now this case comes with a bracket installed for a small form factor power supply, but since we're using a regular size power supply, we're gonna have to remove that. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so the power supply is in. Next thing we're gonna do is install the liquid CPU cooler and the radiator and fans. So let's go and get started on that. So the first thing we'll do is install the back plate here. It has these 4 sockets here that the standoffs will screw into, and those just go through the motherboard in these 4 holes. There we go. So next step, we're gonna go ahead and install these 4 standoffs, and these have the same threads on both sides. I'm just gonna go ahead and screw these into the back plate here. So next we'll go ahead and install the pump unit, and this already has thermal paste pre-applied, so you don't need to add any thermal paste, it just kind of goes right on. Now that we've got the pump bracket on all the standoffs, we're just gonna hold it down with these thumb screws here. And then we can finish them off with a screwdriver, but you don't want to over tighten these, just get them down till you kind of feel a little bit of resistance and you'll be good to go. All right, next we're going to go ahead and install the radiator, and we're going to have the radiator on the front, on the rear of the chassis, and the fans are going to be on the outside of the chassis, pulling in cool air from the outside and blowing them through the radiator. Okay, so we got our fans on. Let's go ahead and take the fan cables and we'll run them up here to the rear so we can get those plugged in to the outputs on the CPU pump. All right, so next we'll go ahead and unravel the cables here connected to the CPU pump. And these are power for the pump and fans. And then this you plug into the CPU fan header on the motherboard. And then these are the power cables for the fans. So I'm just going to go ahead and run these to the rear of the board through here. So these are coming directly from the CPU pump, and these are going to power the fans on the front of the radiator there. And then this is our main power connection for the CPU pump. We're going to plug that into a SATA cable coming from the power supply in just a minute. All right, last cable we need to plug in for the CPU pump is this 4-pin header. It goes right into the CPU pump fan header down here. But before I do that, since this cable is going to be visible, I'm going to just wrap it around this screwdriver here to kind of make it look a little nicer and be a little tidier. Now before it gets too crowded in here, we're going to go ahead and install the M.2 SSD. We'll start by removing the heat sink. We'll go ahead and put in the M.2 at about a 45-degree angle. Now we'll go ahead and tighten it down with the tiny screw that comes with the motherboard. All right, now we'll go ahead and replace the heat sink. Now the heat sink is there because when M.2s are working hard, they can heat up. And when they heat up, they can throttle down so you get slower speeds. So the heat sink will help dissipate that heat, keep everything running as fast as it can. All right, so we've got most of our components installed. I think now it's time to grab the cable mod cables and go ahead and get everything hooked up to the power supply. And we'll also run all the cables from the front I/O to the motherboard. So let's go ahead and get started with that. And like I said, Cable Mod hooked us up with these sleeved cables, and they're gonna look awesome. You know what? There's not that much room in here to access all of the plugs on the back. So what I'm gonna do is take the power supply out, plug in all the cables I think I'm gonna need, and then put it back in. All right, so this is our 24-pin cable here. CPU power cable. PCIe, and then SATA power for our CPU cooler and fans, and then one more SATA power connection for our SSD. So this should be all of the PSU cables that we need. So we'll go ahead and position the power supply back into place, and we'll lock it down with a few screws. All right, so power supply is back in place. Now we're going to run all of these cables around to the front so we can plug them into the motherboard. So we'll start with the CPU power connection. It's going to be easier if we split it to fit it through this tight space here. And then of course our 24-pin motherboard connection here. And the PCIe power for the graphics card will go right through the bottom here. All right, then we'll run a SATA power cable through the front here for our SSD once we're ready for that. All right, so I've cleaned up the cables back here a little bit, but we need a SATA power cable here for the, this is for the liquid CPU cooler here. And then this is for the NZXT fan controller. So that controls the top and the rear fan, as well as the LED light strip that's inside the case already. All right, next thing we're gonna do is go ahead and plug in all of the front I/O connectors. So first we've got the front USB 3.0 connections. Next we've got the HD audio connection. And we've got the front panel, which is the power button, reset switch, and the hard drive activity LED. While we're in here, we'll go ahead and connect the CPU cooler to our motherboard via the USB header. Now the USB header is a little tricky. I'm going to run the cable down below the memory here, or where the memory will be once we install that, through the back and then up through the bottom in order to reach the USB header over here. It's a little tricky, but it should all work out in the end. Now one issue you might see is that these cables are in front of the PCIe slot where the graphics card is going to go. But what we're going to do is we're going to run all the cables off to the side here and through this little gap. I know it looks like it's not going to work right now, but trust me, it'll be fine. So now that we've got almost everything plugged in, wired up, it's time to install the remaining pieces of hardware here. So that includes the memory, the graphics card, and the SSD, and we'll be ready to boot it up. So next we use this bracket here to install the 2.5-inch SSD. So before we attach the SSD to the chassis here, we're going to want to go ahead and plug in the SATA data cable and the power connection, because it's going to be near impossible once you actually attach it to the chassis to get these cables plugged in. Now last but certainly not least, we'll go ahead and install our NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2080. Okay, good to go. All right, there we go. All the components are in. Now it's time for the moment of truth. Go and get this plugged in, see if everything works. All right, power supply's on. The lights on the motherboard came on, so that's a good sign. Okay, it's on. All the fans are going. We've got all the LEDs going, and even the LCD screen on the CPU cooler is going, so I think we're good to go. The next step is we're gonna go ahead and clean up some of the cable management in the rear here, and put on all the side panels, get it hooked up to this monitor back here, and install some software and get this thing ready for some gaming. I think we're also gonna go ahead and try some overclocking with this and see what kind of performance we can get out of this tiny system. So I want to thank you guys very much for watching. If you have any questions about this build or any of our other products, please reach out to us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/rog.n.america. See you next time. Hi, Greg here with ASUS. Now, I'm sure most of you are familiar with our TUF Gaming series of motherboards, built with military-grade components and designed to deliver unwavering stability and durability. Now we're expanding the TUF Gaming lineup of products, and with the help of a few trusted partners, we've created the TUF Gaming Alliance. We've teamed up with Cooler Master, Antec, G-Skill, Corsair, Intermax, and many others to build special TUF Gaming branded components that create a unified desktop ecosystem that ensures compatibility and complementary aesthetics from all components. And to be sure that they can deliver the performance and durability that the TUF Gaming brand has been known for, they've all been thoroughly tested. For example, the memory is put through a 24-hour non-stop stress test using MemTest, and the PSUs must pass a 72-hour torture test to be sure that they'll last through marathon gaming sessions. Beyond their performance, these components also share many of the design cues from our TUF Gaming line of motherboards, like the digital camo and black and gold color combination, so you know everything will look great together in your system. And we've built this system to really show off how all of the components integrate together to give you a great looking and affordable gaming PC. The case we're using is the Cooler Master MasterBox MB500. It comes with three 120mm RGB LED fans. Now those are all powered through the motherboard, and you can customize the color using our ASUS AuraSync software. There are also digital camo accents on the top and front, along with a TUF Gaming Alliance logo. The digital camo continues on the glass side panel as well. Powering the system is a Cooler Master MasterWatt 750 PSU with a touch more of the digital camo design. The motherboard we're using is the TUF Z390 Plus Gaming, which features our TUF MOSFETs, capacitors, and chokes to help improve system stability and reliability. Now, cooling the 8th generation Core i5 CPU is the Cooler Master Master Air MA410M. It features dual RGB LED fans as well as additional addressable internal LEDs. On the top, there's a little bit more of that TUF Gaming digital camo design and a window to see some of those internal LEDs. The memory we're using is the Corsair Vengeance Pro TUF Gaming Edition. And as you can see, they have a row of addressable RGB LEDs across the top, which can be controlled directly through the ASUS AuraSync software. Finally, the GPU we're using is the ASUS Turbo GTX 1070. So not only is this a great looking and affordable gaming PC, it's also powerful enough to play all the latest games without breaking a sweat. The TUF Gaming line of motherboards have always been great for first-time builders by providing great performance, durability, and advanced features like dual M.2 slots, reinforced PCIe slots, and RGB LED headers, all at an affordable price. And now with the TUF Gaming Alliance, we've made it easier to find all the components you need to complete your build without having to worry about compatibility or aesthetics. Over time, there's going to be more and more TUF Gaming Alliance components available, so the possibilities are nearly endless. There's also going to be a lot of TUF Gaming components available directly from ASUS, so keep an eye out for those. Now, if you have any questions about the TUF Gaming Alliance, please reach out to us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/asus.n.america. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Hey, what's up guys? This is Greg with ASUS ROG. Now in our last video, we built this system. It's a mini ITX system utilizing the Z390 chipset and 9th generation Intel Core i7 CPU. Now at the end of that video, I mentioned we were going to set it up and do some overclocking. So in this video, I'm going to show you guys how easy it is to overclock your system using the ASUS AI Overclocking. So let's go ahead and get started. It's actually so easy that the most time-consuming part is just going to be downloading the utilities. So why don't we go and get started with that? So the first thing you're going to want to do is head over to our website and look up the motherboard that you're using. We're using the ROG Strix Z390i gaming motherboard. And go ahead and click on support. So then we'll go ahead and choose our version of Windows. This is where you can find all of your drivers and utilities for the motherboard. This is what's most important here, utilities. So let's go ahead and say see all downloads. So you're going to want to download the ASUS Intel Extreme Tuning utility. We're going to use that in order to stress test the system. And the second most important thing here is the AI suite. So this is the software we'll use to do the AI optimization. Now I've already gone ahead and downloaded all this software. So let's just go ahead and minimize this window and we'll get started. So first things first, let's open up the ASUS Intel Extreme Tuning utility. So this will also give you basic information about your system for your processor, graphics, memory, and all that. But then also down here at the bottom, it has a running timeline of your CPU temperature, CPU utilization, and the maximum core frequency. There's also additional information on the right-hand side here. And when you hover the mouse over the dataset, it'll pop up with more detailed information for the recent minimum, maximum, and average settings. So that's kind of cool too. And we can go ahead and run a stress test right now. We'll just do 5 minutes just to kind of show you what it does. Let's go ahead and click start. So we'll probably go ahead and fast forward through this, but basically it'll take the CPU to 100% utilization, and then we can see how hot it gets and what the maximum core frequency is that we're able to achieve. So our short stress test is complete, and as you can see here in the software, we passed. Now this stress test was only 5 minutes, but if you're going to do a real one and you really want to test the system, I suggest doing a half hour to an hour. And that'll really put this thing to work. So let's look ahead and look at the results down here. So this is the stress test here in the graph. But over here on the right-hand side, we can look at the maximum temperature that it reached. It'll tell us down here. So it looks like the maximum was 63 degrees, which is very good. There's definitely some headroom there to overclock a little bit more. Basically, you want to keep it under 80 degrees. Anything below that is good. So let's see what the max frequency it hit was. So it got up on its own up to 4.7 gigahertz. So I think the max turbo boost on this CPU is 4.9, so it almost hit that. That's pretty good. But I think we can definitely get better than that once we overclock. Now, if you're an advanced overclocker and you have experience overclocking your systems before, you can actually overclock through the ASUS Extreme Tuning utility. You can come in here and put in your own custom settings and try your hand at getting the best performance out of this CPU. But if you're kind of new to overclocking and you want to just click one button and have the best stable overclock you can get, well, then that's why we have the AI suite. So I've already installed the AI suite here. There's a little button in the bottom right-hand corner that shows up after you install it. And we're going to go ahead and open up the software here. Now this already says that we can overclock this to 5.2 gigahertz, which is a 44% increase over the stock, the base clock, the 3.6 gigahertz base clock. So that's pretty good. And down here it has kind of your predicted values for the voltage and the frequency over what it currently is. And then across the bottom, it kind of has all of your current settings, temperature, fan speeds, and frequency. But let's go ahead and start the AI overclock. Let's start. Now what this is going to do is restart your computer. So we're going to go ahead and click yes. So once the computer restarts, it'll automatically pop up with this window from the AI Overclocking, kind of showing the changes that were made. So it looks like we're running at 5.2 gigahertz now. We'll go ahead and click back. And yeah, down here, we've got 5.2 gigahertz, CPU temperature holding around 30, so that's good. But now we want to go ahead and run another stress test and make sure that the system is stable. So let's go ahead and open back up the Intel Extreme Tuning Utility. All right, stress test, CPU stress test. All right, we'll go ahead and do a 5-minute stress test. Let's go and see how high the temperature gets and make sure that this thing is stable. So the stress test has completed for 5.2 gigahertz and it looks like we've passed. Let's go ahead and see what the maximum temperature is that we hit. So it got up to 86 degrees, so that's getting up there in temperature, but still not enough to damage your CPU. So I think that's pretty good. And just in case you guys are wondering, we're actually using the ROG RYUO all-in-one liquid CPU cooler. So this is the 240 millimeter version. It looks like it's working pretty well, this 9th gen CPU. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions about AI overclocking or any of our other products, please reach out to us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/rog.n.america. We'll see you next time.
Hey everyone, I got with me the ROG Strix ARION. This handy little device is an M.2 SSD enclosure with a solid metal construction and built-in RGBs. Installing your own M.2 SSD is super easy, so why don't we get to it?
All the tools we'll need are a Phillips head screwdriver and a cell phone SIM card poker. Your average paperclip, hairpin, or lockpicking kit will also work too. First, we need to insert our SIM card poker into the small hole at the base of the ARION. This will pop open the side panel, revealing the space for our M.2 drive. Very cool, so let's check out the inside. The aluminum body allows some really great heat dissipation, and there's even a cozy little heat absorption pad for your SSD. Now that we have it open, we'll install our M.2 SSD just like you would on your motherboard. Simply unscrew this screw, insert our M.2 at about a 45-degree angle, then we secure the SSD by reinstalling the screw. Finally, we just pop the bottom back on and we're good to go. We can load it up with all our favorite games via the lightning fast USB 3.2C connection.
Well, that was really easy. Now our ROG Strix ARION is all kitted out with an M.2 SSD. Now we get NVMe and RGB on the go. Thanks for watching, and make sure you like and subscribe for more content from ROG. Working from home may turn your home network into a battlefield. You already have multiple Wi-Fi enabled devices around the house, and now you're introducing your work laptop and your work phone into the fray. Older Wi-Fi routers often struggle to keep up with the sheer number of devices within the home while fighting off competing signals from close by networks, leaving you to wonder why your Wi-Fi isn't as fast as it should be. To prevent these wars over bandwidth, you may want to consider upgrading your home router to an ASUS Wi-Fi 6 enabled router. These routers are equipped with the latest standard of Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi 6. The new standard distributes the available bandwidth intelligently, so all devices get a stable signal. The ASUS router's mesh network ensures you're connected to the strongest signal, no matter where you are at home. With Wi-Fi 6, you get high-speed internet anywhere in your home, just like here in the living room, here inside the kitchen, to here inside the bedroom, boom, to even the backyard, so work and play anywhere in your home. And setting up your network is incredibly easy. You can do it all on your smartphone using the ASUS Router application. From the app, you can also manage your parental controls. Things like URL blocking, as well as scheduled shutoffs, allow you to protect your family from inappropriate content or unhealthy internet usage behaviors. The routers also protect your network with AI protection. This built-in security stops outside threats before they enter your network rather than afterwards, so you get peace of mind right out of the box. With ASUS's Wi-Fi 6 enabled routers, there's plenty of Wi-Fi to go around, so make sure everyone gets the coverage they need.
This is the new ASUS ZenWiFi, and I'm John. Today we're going to unbox the ZenWiFi and show you how easy it is to set up. ASUS ZenWiFi is the latest mesh Wi-Fi system. It blankets your home with seamless Wi-Fi, is painless to set up, and the modern aesthetics fit with any style. I have a box of ZenWiFi with me today. As you can see, it's the mesh Wi-Fi system and comes with 2 packs. Let's take a look inside. There's 2 ZenWiFi routers and 2 power cables, an Ethernet cord. It doesn't matter if you own a set of ZenWiFi AX or ZenWiFi AC. With the ASUS Router app in your phone, these are all you need for setup. So let's get started. Place your ZenWiFi routers about 2 meters apart from each other. Plug in power for both routers and turn them on. Then choose one of them to connect your modem and the WAN port of ZenWiFi with an Ethernet cord. When both the routers' lights turn blue, you're ready to go. Install the ASUS Router app from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. After it's downloaded, turn on the Bluetooth and open the app. Press the big setup button and then choose the ZenWiFi series routers. Once your routers are found, touch them to connect. Then press Get Started to create your network. Fill in your name and password for your Wi-Fi network and admin account. Press Apply and wait for 3 minutes. And voila, your Wi-Fi system is all set. There's no additional setup necessary for another router. Once the lights on your router stop pulsing and turn to solid white, you're free to unplug the node and place it anywhere you may have dead spots. That's all there is to it. Enjoy your Wi-Fi.
Hi everyone, JJ with ASUS, and today I'm going to be walking you through how to take advantage of AI protection, our integrated technology which helps to safeguard you from malicious websites and malicious servers. This great feature can be found on the latest generation of ASUS networking products that include our gaming routers, the latest generation of Wi-Fi 6 enabled routers, as well as our mesh networking products like AI mesh enabled routers or our ZenWiFi mesh enabled routers. Now in regards to setup, you have 2 options. One is going to be utilizing the web-enabled interface on any type of device that has a web browser. This would include your smartphone, a tablet, a laptop, or desktop computer. All that you have to do is head over to router.asus.com, hit enter, and then log into the router utilizing your administrator credentials. The second option might be easier for many of you, and that's going to be utilizing our ASUS Router mobile app. This application is supported on both iOS as well as Android-based devices. You can download the ASUS Router app for free, either on the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. So let's walk through how to set up AI protection through the web-enabled interface. As noted before, head over to router.asus.com and enter in your admin credentials. Once you've entered in your credentials, you'll see that you're at the networking dashboard. On the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see a number of different tabs. Click on AI Protection. Once you've clicked on AI Protection, you'll see that there's another 2 set of tabs. Click on Network Protection. You'll now be presented an option to enable AI Protection. Click the corresponding toggle button. This will take about 15 seconds to activate AI Protection, and you'll be notified once it's complete. Alternatively, if you don't want to use the web-enabled address option, you can utilize the ASUS Router app. So let's go ahead and walk through these steps. Once you've downloaded the application, you want to open it. You want to enter in your user credentials. Once you've logged into the actual application, you'll see in the lower right-hand side of the app interface a tab that says Settings. Click on that tab. You'll then be presented a wide range of options, and again here you're going to want to click on AI Protection. Once you've clicked on that, you'll see in the upper right-hand corner an option to toggle or enable AI Protection. Click on that, and you've now successfully enabled AI Protection. Now that you've set up AI Protection, you may want to test it. All you need to do so is to take advantage of the link that we've left in the description down below. This is an officially provided link from Trend Micro. Once you click on this link on whatever corresponding device you're attempting to access this link on, you'll actually receive a flagged notification on the web page. Essentially, what this is informing you of is that the actual website, the connection to the website, is being blocked for safety purposes because AI Protection is working in the background. If you ever want to check on the status of AI Protection, just open the ASUS Router app, click the Insight button, and then from there you'll actually see Security Insight and the 3 different ways that AI Protection is protecting your devices, as well as when it was last updated. Now that you've set up AI protection and tested it, you may want to take advantage of the email notification system. To set up email notification or an email alert, you want to head over to the web-enabled interface at router.asus.com. Once you've entered into the web-enabled interface, you want to head back over to the AI protection tab. From there, head over to notifications. Once you click on notifications, you'll be prompted with the setup box. In the setup box, it's pretty straightforward. Just go ahead and select your email domain, enter in your email address, and then enter in your password. Once you've entered in that, go ahead and hit apply and you're good to go. So that wraps up our quick walkthrough. You now have a clear idea on how to enable AI protection, how to test it, as well as how to receive notifications in the event that your router protects you from connections to a malicious website or malicious server. If you're interested in finding out more about ASUS routers and the different features and functions that they offer, I'd recommend checking out some of the other videos that we offer here on our YouTube channel, as they'll provide you a little bit more information into how ASUS routers can not only provide you a faster and farther reaching Wi-Fi experience, but a safer one.